G'day, I'm Gus Wallen, host of Not an Overnight Success. Welcome to Series 4, all brought to us by our mates at Shaw and Partners Financial Services. Today's episode is with Madam Butterfly, Susie O'Neill, legendary Australian swimmer. We've been great mates since we did the London Olympics together for Foxtel all those years ago in 2012. Love sitting down with Susie. She gets really vulnerable. She talks about chatting with her coach. She talks about childbirth as well as now her new life as being on Brekkie Radio in Brisbane. Fantastic chat, really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy our chat with Madam Butterfly. Okie dokie, welcome. And we're very, very lucky to have Madam Butterfly, Susie O'Neill. Welcome to the podcast. How are you this morning? We've just got you after you doing your Brekkie show up there in Brisbane. How are you this morning?
I'm good, actually. I'm pretty good. I loved working with you, actually. It's good to see you again. Remember we worked together in London at the Olympics?
It was some of the best time of my life, honestly. We just loved it.
Same.
And for people that don't know, you know, it's to go to the Olympics with someone like Susie was just incredible. And then we just became really good mates. We spent a lot of time together. Susie would call the swimming, and then I would chat to the swimmers that would want to chat on poolside. And the girls did well in the Olympics. The boys not so flash, but it's a relationship in that week that I really, really enjoyed, Suze.
But you know what I loved that you did for me is, remember we always met for coffee before we went out to the pool?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Just like bit of, I don't know, what do you call that?
Just,
bonding? Or
yeah,
downtime?
bonding. Yeah,
Or
connection.
relaxing?
Connection.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, so did I. And I must admit, I've known you for a little while, obviously you being a swimmer and so forth, before we came mates. But it did surprise me that you're now doing a breakfast radio show because you are reasonably shy. And I know certainly when you were younger and swimming that media wasn't something you were necessarily going to get into. So what was the reasoning for you to get into the show in Brizzy?
God, if you had told me when I was at school or just finished school that I would be doing a breakfast radio show, I would have thought you were making it up. Yeah, I am shy. I'm still shy. I'm a shy person. I'm gradually getting more confident in social situations, but I don't like meeting new people. But how did it happen? Well, kind of by luck. I ran into Lutzi, one of the co-hosts I work with. I work with Ash Bradnam and Lutzi, David Luttrell. I ran into Lutzi up at the Noosa Triathlon. And I was drunk and he was drunk. And I was telling him how I had just been to see a life coach. And he's like, oh, wow, that's interesting. And funnily enough, at that life coach, I didn't tell Lutzi this at the time. At the life coach, I had to put down if I could succeed at anything and not fail, what would it be? And I said, be on a radio show. Can you believe that?
No, I don't.
And it was weird. And then I ran into Lutzi. I didn't tell him that. I just kind of said, I've been to this life coach. And he thought I was, and I must have said all this kind of weird stuff that he's like, this would be great to share with people. And then I also knew Ash because he used to be a sports reporter when I was a swimmer. And so they asked me to come and trial, well, not really trial, fill in for Mitch Lewis, who's Wally Lewis's son, who reads our sport here.
Yep.
So 10 years ago, he went on not maternity leave, honeymoon. That's right, honeymoon. And for 3 weeks, and they got me as one of the girl athletes to come in and read the sport for a week. And then I just stayed. And it started really slowly, like an hour, just a break, like 7:30 to 8, and then a day, a week, and then 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. I went 5 days full time, I think 5 years ago.
Wow. And now you've been, so what's it like? I mean, I did 10 years with Matty Johns and MG, 2 bullfed rugby league players.
Yeah.
I loved it, but that alarm, not only for me, but for my partner, Vix had to wake up every morning, even though she could roll over and go back to bed. It's a killer, especially with children that you have as well.
Yeah, it is a killer. And you know what? I remember you talking about it when we did that show in London at the Olympics. I remember you saying it was so hard to get up. And it is. I've been doing it for 10 years now. Actually, you know what? I'm getting really sick of it, if I'm being honest. I'm getting really sick of getting up early. Getting up early.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
If you could just do the show, it would be so wonderful. But the fact you have to get up at such an hour to then be able to, plan the show and produce it all up to get ready for 6 o'clock when that mic goes live.
And you've got to be on every morning, haven't you? I mean, it's really different to swimming training, because when I was swimming and getting up early, which is what I did most of my life, that's all I was doing. So I tailored my life around that. But now, as you said, I've got children and family. I stay up late. I do other things.
Yeah.
I've got other roles and other jobs. You know what? I turned 50 this year. I'm tired.
Tell you what, you look fantastic. I mean, you probably don't feel it right now. You've just done your Brekkie radio show, but you look 15 years younger than 50.
Oh, thank you. I try to keep myself really fit. So I exercise every day. I swim a couple of times a week. I've just been on a surfing holiday to Indonesia. So I just like to invest in my health.
Good on you. I love that. Well, we've sort of jumped to the back end, so I'll get back to the start because I want to know about you as a kid. What sort of childhood did you have, and how did you grow up, and where, and who with?
It's funny you should ask this because I've been seeing a psychologist lately and she's been asking me the same stuff. Who am I? Because I'm at a point now, I'm 50, one child's left home. I've got one in grade 12 and he's going to leave home. So I'm going to be an empty nester next year.
Mm.
And it's like, who am actually I? Because, when you've got kids, you kind of just, you play a role, don't you? You don't really think about yourself too much. So I've been thinking about what was I like as a kid. I was a pretty different kid. I was a massive tomboy. I had an older brother and I pretty much hung around with him all the time and did everything that he did to the point of, I wore his board shorts with no shirt. I tried to go to the toilet like him. I just really, really idolized him. But he was really sporty as well. So that's when I learned how to surf. We'd ride bikes. We'd always be competing with each other, like to the point we lived in a two-story house and we had this sort of round stairs that went up to upstairs, and nearly every night we went to bed, we'd race up the stairs, and the person behind you could ankle tap the person in front of you, and they would face plant on the stairs. So everything was a competition and a race, which I need to thank him for being competitive. But I was pretty hyperactive, I suppose. I was always active. I spent a lot of time by I didn't like socialize a lot with other kids. I was more active based kind of kid, I suppose you would say. But it was a really good childhood. I had really great parents.
So you're up there in Queensland. Was it Brisbane that you were at mainly as a child, or was it other parts of the state?
I was born in Mackay, but only lived there for a couple of months. Dad just had a job up there. But lived in Brisbane. But all our holidays were at either the Gold Coast or Noosa, Sunshine Coast.
Beautiful.
2 holidays a year, usually like most families back then. Easter we went to Noosa. December we went to Greenmount near Coolangatta. But I started swimming quite early. Brisbane got the Commonwealth Games in 1982 and I was in grade 4. And my year 4 teacher really focused on the Commonwealth Games. We collected all the newspaper clippings and really, really focused on it. And I remember thinking, that's what I want to do. So I started swimming that year and with Mr. Wakefield. So that was a big part of my life is swimming with Mr. Wakefield at the local pool and with the swimming club and all the friends I made there, which I'm still friends with one of them. One is my best friend still.
Oh, that's so good to have those sort of memories. Before we get into the swimming, were you good at any other sports? Was there something that you loved? Was there another sport perhaps if you focused on that you might have done well at?
I don't know. I did a lot of sports growing up. I loved any type of sports. I played a lot of tennis. We had a tennis court at home and I played fixtures and lessons, and I played fixtures twice a week. So quite often I would go swimming training and then go straight to tennis fixtures. What else did I do? I did a lot of running. I still hold the running record at my high school for the 400 meters running.
Wow.
I did a lot of cross country, surfing, bike riding. I did heaps of stuff. I played netball. I didn't love team sports, I've got to say. I didn't like relying on other people for what I wanted to do. In a team sport, you've got to wait for the ball to be passed to you. I like that.
I'm getting a theme here that you were focused pretty much on mucking around with your brother or doing individual sports. That seemed to be your happy places.
Yeah, pretty much. And did a lot of things. Swimming. I had a teacher actually that really got me into swimming at school, who I also am still in touch with, Mrs. Brett. I still see her regularly. So she really encouraged me to do those zones and regional swims. Do you know those from school?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I used to love them because then she would get me to come to her classroom and show my medals to her class. She never taught me. And I really remember that. So I liked sport and I liked competing and I liked winning things, actually.
So at what sort of stage early on, like you're there, you start swimming through the 82 Commonwealth Games, at what stage does someone say, you're actually pretty good at this? If you stick at it, you might be able to be a swimmer. What was sort of the process for you then?
Yeah, well, I really remember a particular point when the dream is really put into my head and of that I could be really good. And I was probably about 12 and I was training with Mr. Wakefield at the local pool. And I remember I was sitting on, those seats that they used to do the judging on at the end of a pool? The judges used to sit on them. Anyway, they were tiered seats.
Tiered seats, a little bit higher, yep.
Yeah, and Mr. Wakefield coming up to me and saying, one day people will know me like they know Shane Gould, who was a really famous swimmer. I don't know if a lot of people will remember her, but she was a super famous swimmer back in the 70s. And I remember just him saying that, thinking, just when someone puts that dream in your head.
Yeah.
I could be like that. But then fast forward, I mean, then my career was quite different. I mean, I could give you a speedy version, but, back then swimming, most people gave up swimming as soon as they finished school. They were quite young.
Mm.
They were the Tracy Wickhams and all that were 19, 20 when they gave up swimming. So I always thought that I would swim. So I started in about grade 4, that I'd swim until I finished school and then I'd go to uni and get a proper job.
Mm.
And obviously my parents were really big on schoolwork,
Yep.
et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
But then it kind of worked out differently, mainly probably because of the Sydney Olympics.
What I love is that dream that gets put into your brain,
Yes.
and for you to go, oh, Shane Gould. It's like a cricketer now, a young 12-year-old saying, you could be Steve Smith one day, or you could be Mitchell Starc one day, or Glenn McGrath, whatever sort of generation we're talking about. That's an incredible thing to hear. And did it sort of sink in and you went, oh, Mum and Dad, this is what I've been told? Or did you think they wanted you to go to the traditional path and, swimming was just, a bit of fun?
I wouldn't have told my parents that he said that to me, to be honest.
Okay.
And I wouldn't have thought that, and they were definitely traditionalists. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, when someone just actually does that, you're right, it just makes you believe. Because a lot of things in life are just believing you can do it, don't you think?
Oh,
or
for
faking it
sure.
till you make it.
Yeah.
Don't you reckon? Especially now that I'm doing radio, I'm like, oh, wow, okay, so this is what happens. You just like pretend that you can do it, and all of a sudden you can do it. It's weird, isn't it?
It sure is.
And just believing that you can do it. Yeah, so for Mr. Wakefield to say that, it's like, oh, wow, imagine if people knew me like they knew Shane Gould. Just going, wow, I'd love that. I'd love everyone to know who I was.
So did Shane Gould one day come up to you, or did you go up to her one day and have that conversation? Have you told her that story?
I have told her that story, yeah.
What did she say?
She didn't say too much. Because a lot of people, well, surprisingly, she does talk a lot. But a lot of people, when I was a bit older, a lot of people said that we were very similar as swimmers, her mannerisms and different things like that. I did tell her. What did she say? She's pretty quirky, Shane. Have you interviewed her?
No,
I love
never.
her.
No, never have.
I love her because she always has really good pearls of wisdom. Like, I remember once she said to me, which is what I'm feeling like I'm going through at the moment. I said to her, well, how are you going, Shane? I don't know how old she was. She's probably about my age or maybe a bit younger. She goes, I'm like the field that has had a lot of crops growing in it and needs now to take a rest and just like rejuvenate to see what they're going to plant in the paddock, before we go on. I'm thinking, I really remember her saying that. And at the time, because I was a lot younger, I must have been early 20s, thinking that's a really odd thing to say. But now that I'm 50, I feel like I'm going through exactly the same time that she said. You know that feeling?
Of course.
She explained it so well in a picture.
Yeah.
Like the field that needs to be rested a bit to find out what they want to plant in it again.
Exactly. And then, of course, at the age of 50, you've got another 25, 30, hopefully, of healthy years, and you can go again. You can literally do what you've done in your first 50 in your next 30.
Hopefully.
I've gone through the same discussion. I'm 54 now, and we're empty nesters. Abby, Ella and Jack all gone ski. Ella's been living in London now for a couple of years, and it's just a different world now. And we've got to work stuff out to see what's going to be right for Vix and I moving forward. It's a lonely old place at times, and haven't got that energy that you used to have around the house. Yeah.
And do you feel like time's running out? I've got this weird feeling that I haven't got enough time to fit in everything.
No, I've always felt I've always been a positive cat, and I've always felt that I'll be able to do whatever. I've just got to keep my head in the game and she'll be right, sort of thing. So I feel we're going to be right. I got another 30.
Okay. Oh, good.
So you're the fourth grader. You go through. I'm assuming you're winning everything. There's more medals and ribbons and stuff. And you're doing all strokes.
Well, I have a mixed swimming result. Can't speak. I've been speaking for too long today, so you've run out of words.
It's okay.
I've got a mixed result catalogue, because I actually used to get so nervous before my races when I was younger that when I dived in and swam like freestyle, I wasn't doing butterfly at the time, but freestyle, I would actually stop. So I'd have a panic attack and I felt really claustrophobic and stop.
Oh.
So as a consequence, I was a backstroker, so I could keep my head out of the water. So I would win state titles when I was 10 at backstroke, but not even finish the freestyle event because I get pulled out of the water because I was a nervous competitor, and but backstroke, my head's out of the water, so I never got that claustrophobic feeling.
So at what stage did that change for you to be able to go, you know what, I can work through this, keep my head in the water and finish these races where the head was down?
Yeah, probably around 13. And we were doing a lot of butterfly in training then with Mr. Wakefield. And so at 14, I switched and became a butterflyer pretty much. And then I got second at the Olympic trials, Open Nationals, when I was 14 in butterfly. I didn't make the team, but also didn't do backstroke again.
Okay, so everyone has a crack at swimming. You do the freestyle, a little bit of breaststroke, you're mucking around. No one does butterfly because it just hurts so much. What made you eventually become Madam Butterfly? What was that thing that went, you know what, this is hard, but I'm good at it, so I'm sticking at it?
Well, probably like you said then, because I was good at it. And we did a lot of butterfly in training, like I said, and then it kind of just popped out and I was good at it. And I was good at the 50 and the 100. But moving to the 200 butterfly, that was the one that I particularly didn't really want to do, to be honest. But my coach, Mr. Wakefield, said, this was in 1992. So I'd made the Commonwealth Games in Auckland and Pan Pacs, but I was 100 metres butterfly. But 1992, the lead up to that Olympics, Mr. Wakefield said there's a big opening in the 200 butterfly, not only in Australia, but internationally. So I was 18 when I did my first 200 butterfly, which is, it's pretty old for a swimmer.
Yeah.
So I took it up in that year and I won trials and then I got third at the Olympics in the 200 butterfly.
Good on Mr. Wakefield.
I know, Mr. Wakefield. But I only did it, to be honest, because I was better at it. Everyone wants to be a 50 freestyler and then a 100 freestyler. Yeah. And then as you're less talented, you move out into different events.
Well, you did pretty good at all. I mean, I've got your stats here. Across Olympics, world champs, long course, short course, the Pan Pacs Com Games, 24 gold, 33 silver, 10 bronze. Do you know those stats? You don't seem like the type of person that would perhaps know every stat, but that's pretty impressive stuff. When you hear that, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, well, it makes me feel good. And you're right, I don't know my stats. I've never been into stats. I never knew my best times or who I was competing against or any of that stuff, which made commentating kind of hard because I wasn't into stats or results. But nearly every time I walk into a pool now, and I walk into a pool probably 3 times a week, I actually go, oh, wow, I've made it. And I'm a good swimmer. Who would have thought that when I was, 10, when I walked into Mr. Wakefield's squad at like Hibiscus Gardens, that I would have ticked off pretty much every single goal that you could in swimming. So I do. I reminisce about it a bit. I'm like, and I smell the chlorine and I love it. And then how good that I still love swimming.
Exactly.
Like so many swimmers don't swim anymore.
Yeah.
Don't swim anymore. Like most, I reckon.
Mr. Wakefield. I love the fact you call him Mr. Wakefield. I went back to my old school for Are You OK Day, and Mr. Gooding was there, and he was my favourite teacher. And I said, oh, Mr. Gooding. He goes, oh, Gus, please call me Martin. I go, I can't. I'm so sorry, I can't. There's a few mates of mine whose fathers, until they passed away recently, I called them Mr. as well. Like, I'm teared up thinking about those relationships and people that steer you in a path that you go, oh, if I believe in Mr. Wakefield, if I believe in my guy, Mr. Gooding, I'm going to be a good kid. He's going to put me in the right path. You sound so fond of this man. Can you tell us more about him? Is he still with us? How important was he in your life?
It's more now that I've finished swimming and I've got older, I appreciate him so much because I'll tell you how it ended. It didn't end that great.
Oh.
So I'll start the bad part first.
Yeah, let's go with the bad bit.
The bad part first. So I ended up, when I was 21 and I went to the 94 World Championships and Commonwealth Games, I was really disappointed with how I'd swum. So I'd swum with him since I was 9 to 21. So I decided to leave him at that point when I was 21. And that was really difficult, probably more for him than for me. I remember going with my mum to see him and telling him, and he was really angry and probably upset and pretty much said I would never swim as fast with anyone else. And I changed coaches. So I had that, and I moved to Scott Volkers, and so the last 6 years of my career was with Scott Volkers. And then 3 weeks before the Sydney Olympics, Mr. Wakefield died. He died of cancer at a pretty young age. But there's so many things I regret that I didn't do when he was alive, like when I broke the world record in 2000 in the 200 metres butterfly, just before the Sydney Olympics, which was a big deal at the time and for me. I've been recently watching a lot of my old races, and I watched the interview, and I didn't thank him. I didn't thank Mr. Wakefield, who was such a big part of me swimming, and he is actually a big part of my personality now. And I really regret not thanking Mr. Wakefield. And I'm not crying now because I've been to a psychologist a lot about this, and every time I because I really regretted it. Do you ever have those moments that you
Yeah, of
regret things that
course.
you but I
Yeah.
was young, I suppose, and I was selfish, and I was self-centered and self-focused with my swimming, but going back to how good he was, like, he was like a granddad to me, to all of us, and he would in winter, we used to train at a pool a bit further away, Chandler, and he used to pick us all up, like 4 girls, and pick us up and drop us back home again, and he would tell us stories, and I don't know how to describe him. He wasn't like he never raised his voice ever, and he would tell stories about fairies in his backyard, and he's written me beautiful letters, given me things that I've still got. He was really articulate, he was ahead of his time, his coaching. He was actually amazing, and I think back to when I left him because I probably could have been almost as maybe as successful with him. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
You'll never know.
I never know, but I mean, because I was the only one training with him and I was hating it, and I wanted to go to a squad where there was other swimmers. There was a couple of reasons and things, but
Yeah, you need to
he had
freshen it
such
up.
good I need to freshen it up. And I didn't really talk to him again after that much when I left him.
Just the business of swimming, were you quicker once you went to Scott than you were with
Mm,
Mr. Wakefield? Like
mm,
thousandths of a second, is a difference between, gold and silver
yeah.
and so forth. So you were, in terms of
I improved
swimming
a
and the
lot
business, it was the right decision.
better. It was the right decision, yeah. Yeah, I improved
Mm.
substantially. I just feel sorry for him because now I'm an adult. I'm like, "Oh, poor Mr.
Yeah,
Wakefield."
yeah,
But
yeah. That's
I've resolved a lot of my angst around that.
yeah. And I think at the end of the
Mm,
day, he probably was very, very proud of you. He was just hurt because you were his protege.
mm,
He knew how bloody good you were, and you'd had so much success even
mm.
at that age. That's a tough
And
one though.
and because he was such a great coach, I hardly trained when I was younger. He was real quality in kilometers wise. So up until the age of 21, I was only so most swimmers you swim around 70 to 100 k's a week, right? In swimming terms, probably with him, I was probably doing 35 to 40 k's a week. So I don't have any shoulder injuries. I don't have any. Probably why I still love swimming. He made it. What I mean, he's ahead of his time. He made it fun and enjoyable,
Mm.
and that's the reason I kept swimming for so long, and one of the reasons I still love it.
Susie, let's talk about, the real sort of successes, if you like, initially in the pool for you and how much it meant to you personally. A shy girl that didn't necessarily want to be, around a lot of other people. You eventually get to the stage where you're representing Australia. How does it work for people listening? Do you get a phone call saying you're in the Australian team, or is it just done on times? Or tell us that moment when you first put on the green and gold and knew that you were going to represent.
Yeah, we go to a trials event for swimming, and it's most of my career, it was pretty black and white whether you made it or not, and then you get it announced at the end of the swim meet that you made the team. Probably the only time when I wasn't sure if I was gonna make it or not was my first Olympic trials at 1988, and it was at the Sydney, the old Manly pool, not Manly pool, yeah, Manly Warringah pool at
Mm,
Sydney.
yeah.
Yeah, that pool, and I came 2nd. Which so usually you gotta come in the top 2 and make a qualifying time, but back then it was a bit more iffy. Don Talbot hadn't come on as the head coach yet, who was our famous head coach for all my career, who
Yeah.
made it quite strict. But every other time I kinda knew I'd made the team, but it's a good feeling. For me, I remember different things, like I remember my 2nd team probably, which was the Commonwealth Games for Auckland, and we trained at the Institute of Sport before we went away, and we had a 3-week camp there, and I really remember kicking like, the whole of the Australian swimming team is in the 50-meter pool, and I remember just kicking on the board going, "Wow, I'm in the Australian swimming team." Thinking that was amazing because really remember watching the '82 Commonwealth Games and seeing Lisa Curry and Tracy Wickham and the Mean Machine, and that was when I was, yeah, 9, and here I was, what, 15 years old, so not that many years later, 6 years old. 6 years later, going, "Oh, I'm I'm now part of this team." So it was a real, prestige thing to be part of the swimming team to start with. And then going to the Commonwealth Games, my coach on the team saying, "You can win a gold medal at the Commonwealth Games." I remember thinking, "No," as if I'd be able to do that. Just again, I look back and go, if only I was as confident as I was at the end of my career, at the beginning of my career. It just
Yeah.
takes a while for that confidence and belief to kick in. I felt like I would have been a bit better.
So the first gold medal, firstly, when was it? What was it like? And did you just sort of sleep with it on that night and so forth? What was that day like for you?
My first big gold medal was probably in a relay, to be honest, which was the 1990 Commonwealth Games again, because I'd done the individual 100 and came 2nd in that. to Lisa Curry. But in the 4x100 freestyle relay, it was me, Lisa Curry, Angela Mullins, and someone whose name escapes me. Isn't that bad?
It'll come back to you.
Oh, Karen Van Werdum. Yeah, that's right.
Beautiful.
And I remember thinking, well, I really remember that and thinking, I'm going to be so famous. Everyone is going to know who. That's what I remember thinking, is everyone's going to know who I am. I don't know. I must have really had an obsession with people wanting to know who I was.
Yeah.
I must have, hey.
For someone who wanted to stay sort of just in your own lane, it's a bit
I don't
weird.
know. I always wonder with that, is this my only way I could get attention? Because in real life, I was so quiet, like pathologically shy, I would call myself back then.
Okay.
Like barely been able to function in social situations.
Right.
But when I swam, everyone took notice of me. And I think I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But I wasn't famous, by the way, because I remember getting back to Australia and thinking, oh, everyone's going to know who I am when I walk down the street. But no one did.
So you win the first gold. Do you sleep with it that night?
I don't think I would have slept with it.
Okay.
No. I'm trying to think of my first big individual gold. I can't remember.
Wow.
Isn't that funny?
Well, you've won, like I said before, 24 of them. So it might be hard to remember. If there's not the first one you don't remember, what's the one that absolutely stands out for you?
Actually, you know, probably is my first really big one that does stand out was the 96 Olympics gold medal. Because ever since I watched the 82 Commonwealth Games, but then I watched the 84 Olympics in LA. And remember John Sieben won the gold medal.
Oh, yeah.
In the 200 meters butterfly.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, and I had that poster on the back of my wall of him. He put his hand up at the end, and I thought John Sieben was so cool. So when I won the 200 fly at the Olympics, I'm like, and I felt like it was just one of those preparations that I just felt like it was going to happen. I just, it's probably the only time it's really happened in my career, to be honest. Like you just knew that I was going to win. I felt like.
Yeah. So everything was just, so the preparation was good. You hit the wall, you look around and you're like, I'm an Olympic champion. Like, woo, how good's that?
It was good. And my brother was there in the stands. It was in Atlanta. So my brother was there with his wife, a friend, my cousin, Cliff, who I was dating at the time, was there. And they all had T-shirts on with my photo and zinc on their faces. And yeah, I remember hopping out of the pool and looking up at them and, throwing my arms in the air. And I really remember that. That was amazing. That was a weird night because then we all went out to Centennial Park, which is where all the athletes hung out in sort of sponsored sort of areas. But that was the night the bomb went off. It was such a weird night. Do you remember the Atlanta bomb?
Yes, I remember,
There was that night. And then we all had to quickly rush to get home. And there was no mobile phones back then.
No.
So no one knew where we were. And everyone was just trying to make their way back to the village and different places. So it was a really funny night because, it was a night I won the gold medal, but also a weird night because a bomb went off and we're trying to get home. But that's definitely my favourite medal, probably. And my favourite race is probably the world record.
Yeah, of course. And the Madam Butterfly, when did that name happen? And was that Ray Warren that did that, the commentator at the time? Or did it just appear in a newspaper and you rolled with it? Because that was... if someone says now Madam Butterfly, everyone knows. Like you perhaps weren't famous after winning that first gold medal with the Com Games, but you certainly are now just by nickname.
Yeah. So how it came about is Mary T. Marr was a 200 butterfly in America. She was an American, and that was her nickname, Madam Butterfly. And that's actually subsequently the world record I ended up breaking.
So you took a world record and you took a nickname.
Yeah, I stole her name.
Have you ever apologised to her?
I've spoken to her a bit. I think I might have, and she's an amazing lady, actually. She's 10 out of 11 children. Number 10 out of 11 children, I think. Grew up in this really religious family and is the nicest lady, like the nicest, most low-profile lady you've met. And I met her. Her husband worked for sport. He was an athlete as well. Can't remember what sport he did, but he worked for the Goodwill Games, and they came to Australia in 2001. So I met her around that time, and I was going for her record at that time because she had the longest standing world record in swimming, 19 years. She'd broken this record back in the early 80s, I think, or the mid 80s. Actually, I don't know when she'd broken it. Work that out with the calculator. But I really remember meeting her and thinking she's such a normal person. And that, again, belief. Once you meet someone who's done something extraordinary, you realize that they're not extraordinary people. They just work really hard to do extraordinary things.
Yeah.
So when I met her, I was like, oh, she's really normal. I could probably break this record, but yeah, I stole her nickname. I do feel a bit bad about it. And Wayne Smith, he had a reporter from The Australian. Do you remember him?
Yeah, I remember him, yeah.
He took it and ran with it, and then it grew and grew and grew, and I love it so much. I
Oh,
love it.
it's the best. There's so
Yeah.
much. As soon as you say it, it's so positive. People know
Yeah.
exactly. They smile. They remember a race of some description. Yeah, it's a fantastic nickname. Can we move now a little bit, obviously, from swimming? At some stage, you've got to decide, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. How did that come to you, that moment where you had to hang up the cozies?
Yeah, that's a gut feeling. I've been thinking about that a lot at the moment, probably because I'm going through a bit of a crossroads. What's that gut feeling that tells you, I don't want to do this anymore?
Mm.
And for me, it was probably around a year before the Sydney Olympics.
Oh, really?
So it was about a year before when, well, that stage I was about 26, I think, or 27. And so I felt like all my friends were out being adults, and I'd met Cliff at that stage. I was married. Yeah, I was married then. And I kind of felt like I wanted to be an adult, but I was still in this really kids sort of, really, to be a good swimmer, it's really disciplined. You do 10 sessions a week. You have to go to bed early. And you kind of really, I feel like you really have to give 110% every single session.
Right.
If you're not really passionate about it and you start not giving 110% every session, I don't know, your performance starts to go down a bit. And also, it was getting to the point where winning wasn't that fun anymore. It was kind of a relief,
Mm.
but losing was horrible. So it became, so not only was training not as easy for me because I wasn't passionate, when I competed, and I was always a nervous competitor, it was kind of getting a bit worse because it felt like I had to win. If I didn't win, I don't know. It was weird. It's just a weird feeling, you know.
You were torn between a couple of different sort of worlds,
Things.
wanting to give up, but not being able to win stuff was going to annoy you as well. So you're a bit stuck.
It wasn't as fun.
No. And
So I
plus
kind of had
Susie
that gut
O'Neill
feeling.
needs to win too, right? Like at that stage, you were winning a lot. So you didn't want to be that bunny that ended up coming last or missing out on stuff.
Well, I kind of really wanted to stop at the top as well. I mean,
Yeah.
how do you know when the top is? I remember my dad saying that to me a lot too. You got to get out when you're on top, not when
Yeah.
you start coming down the others.
You can't
sliding.
go too early either in case you miss out on some really good stuff that you've worked so hard for.
Yeah, exactly. So I think physically I probably could have kept going a bit longer. Looking now, especially at athletes, how long they're all swimming for. Like I think Kate Campbell's in her 30s and
Yeah.
well, Kelly Slater's competing at 50.
Unbelievable.
So I retired at 27, but I knew I was done. I was sick of training and I was getting really nervous competing. Sydney Olympics was great. And also what a way to go out at home Olympics, I suppose. And then Sydney was fun, but it was terrifying. And I don't know, it was a good time. It was a good time to leave.
So, Suze, at that stage, you everyone knows you, you're Madam Butterfly and that sort of stuff. And for a lot of athletes, it's hard then to sort of work out what you're going to do next. How long did it take you to sort of work out that next stage, and what did you do after you finished swimming?
Yeah, well, it took me 13 years to find something that I loved, like radio,
Yeah.
and was comparable to elite sport, to be honest. Similar type feelings and pressure and excitement and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a real up and down time. God, I didn't realize it would be so difficult retiring from sport because I retired exactly on my terms and I'd achieved everything I wanted to achieve. So most stories I'd heard, people were struggling because they went out of injury or they didn't perform well, they missed a team, etc., etc. But I thought I'd be fine because I left when I wanted to leave, and I was fine for about 2 years. And I was busy doing a lot of, it was probably really good for me actually. I was doing a lot of functions, meet and greet functions, which I didn't enjoy, but it probably really helped me learn skills of how to talk to people better and mix and mingle with people better,
Yeah.
sort of thrown in the deep end. I think I was traveling every week somewhere doing functions and stuff. And then after about 2 years, I reckon 2 years is fun. And then you're like, oh, now what? What do I do now? What's my next goal? I was like, Cliff, we should have some children. And
He's like, you beauty.
no, he was like, no, I don't think we should have them straight away, which
Oh.
I think was sensible.
Because he's a doctor, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a
yeah.
doctor. He's like, I think we should wait a little bit longer,
Was that his career that he needed to
Um,
sort of spend a bit more time, or?
I think he wanted me to be outside of swimming for a few years before I had children, which I think was actually good advice.
Okay.
Like, I waited, it was about 2 years and then, well, to be honest, I probably wanted them straight away. because that's my next thing. That's the next thing on my list of things I need to do. So, but he wanted to wait a few years. It did actually work in with his career quite well. I wonder if he did actually plan.
Oh, don't worry. He had it all planned. Don't worry. He had it all sorted out.
He had it all planned.
Is he a sensible cat, Cliff?
Yeah.
So you're slightly
Totally.
left of centre. He's the sensible cat. Does that
Pretty
work?
much. Yeah, he's my anchor. I can be a bit,
Yeah, loose.
I
And
wouldn't say loose. I'm not a
wacky?
loose person.
Wacky?
I'm not a loose person, am I? No.
No, you're not. No, wacky,
Wacky.
left of centre at times or whatever,
Not
which
normal.
is fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I had kids, and that was a real wake-up call, wasn't it? Oh, my God. How hard is having children? You had no idea.
Well, you got through most of it. You got one in year 12 now and one that's left home. So so tell us about that experience. What sort of kids have you got, and what sort of kids are they, and what sort of mum are you?
Yeah, wow. Wow. Well, I can look back and laugh at it now, but I used to, and I like to give people when I was on the radio, a realistic account of what it was like being a mum, because I felt like when I became a mum, other mums used to say was, oh my God, I love it. I love being a mum so much. And I was thinking, but I don't love it. This is really hard. A lot of hard work. I had really bad postnatal depression, actually.
Did you? I'm sorry to hear that.
But it's funny when I look back at it, because you can look back at it sort of laughing, because I went to a GP, and my GP I'd seen my whole life, and she's like, I think you've got postnatal depression. I'm like, no, I don't. And so I'd left her, and I went to a different GP I'd never seen before. That was my solution.
Yeah.
I go in, he goes, I think you got postnatal depression.
Oh, right.
I'm like, oh, okay.
Did you then go back to the one you spent?
No. I'm like, oh, okay, I've got postnatal depression.
Oh.
And he was really good. It's tough. It's a tough time. I can look back at it laughing now, and it sounds like it's not even real looking back at it, but it's hard, when you just can't even really get out of bed, and you're just so tired and so sad. And anyway, but I muddled through it. I had great support with my GP. I took some medication. I'd made some more time for myself. That was probably the biggest thing I did. I started back swimming. At the local pool, I had a creche, and I could put my kids in there and swim. And so I muddled through that and got through it. And I really enjoyed motherhood, probably especially from the ages of, I reckon, 7 to 13. Because that was my favourite time when I was a kid as well.
Yeah.
And that was my favourite time of being a parent. And I'm so proud of my kids. Honestly, they have turned out so well. I'm really, really, really proud of them.
So tell us about
they're
them.
nice humans.
Who was number one?
So Alex is number one. So she's my daughter, and she's second year uni doing BAFE, got a really good score as a brainiac so it's a sort of specialist mathematics finance course.
Mm-hmm.
Is really, really caring. It's hard to put into words what they're like, hey? But just a really caring,
Beautiful person.
girl.
Yeah, good soul.
Yeah, I mean, everyone says this about their kids, don't they? Mm. I think she's found
Not
her people
necessarily.
now.
I've got 3, and I could come up with all sorts of adjectives for mine.
Depending on what day.
Yeah.
She hasn't had an easy time. I don't think it's easy being my daughter, to be honest. Thankfully, she's got a different last name, but people aren't always nice to other people, seems. But she's found her way now, and has found her tribe, and she's going great. And son as well, he's had his ups and downs over the years as well, but he seems pretty mature. Even this last night at dinner, he just started rubbing my back.
Oh,
yeah.
it's so nice, just without even thinking about it.
Yeah, and I'm not a really touchy-feely person. That's the only. I've had a few regrets as a mum. I didn't tell them I love them enough, because my parents didn't do that to me, so I find it really awkward to do. I'm trying to do it more now, and I'm not demonstrative. What's the word?
Yeah,
I don't physically, which I'm trying to do more now, but I wasn't enough, I don't think, over the years, because they're really huggy. I've realised now they're really huggy people.
This generation tend to be more huggy, and I'm a massive hugger.
Yeah,
and I love you all the time, even not to the Uber driver necessarily, but I've certainly said it to an Uber driver. Love you, brother. Thank you so much. But the I love you bit with your kids, for me, because I never got it myself from Dad in particular. In fact, I brought it up with my dad the other day. He lives in Canberra, and my brother and I drove down to see him. And at the end, I said, "Okay, Dad, thanks so much for lunch. Love you," and gave him a big hug. He goes, "Okay. Have a good trip, let me know when you get home and stuff." And I'm in the car with my brother. I'm just like, why won't he just say he loves us? He goes, he loves us. I go, yeah, but I want to hear it, right? So I rang him. I rang him back. I said, okay, we're on the road, Dad. Just wanted to say it really was a lovely lunch, blah, blah, blah. He goes, good on you. That's great. And then, deet, deet, deet. You know, I'm like, oh, my brother's just shaking his head. He said, it's a battle you'll never win because Granddad never showed him that, so he doesn't know how to do it.
It's just that generation, isn't it?
Yeah. But
It's that generation.
these kids, they want it. They love to
Yeah.
hear it, and they say it to each other. They say it to their friends. They're like you
Yeah.
say, your daughter found her people. I had one daughter as well that struggled to find, and then all of a sudden she found her people, and that's the greatest blessing as a parent, isn't it? When you just go,
Aren't you
oh,
happy?
God, thank
Yeah.
God they've found
Thank
their
God.
people.
I know. It's better than any, like, you don't really care what they do you? Like,
No.
or degrees or
It's all
whatever they-
nonsense.
you just want them to be, and it's such a cliche, isn't it? You want them to be happy, but you want them to be happy.
Find your people, find your
your people and-
tribe, and just go and have a
Yeah.
good time, and you'll bumble your way through. You know,
Yeah.
you'll find whatever you need to find, and that's happened with all three of ours. We're empty nesters too at the moment, all three away from home. So
Oh, wow.
with Vicky being English, they can live over there, you see. So I miss them terribly.
Oh, you would, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, God. I'm worried about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, but also it'll be, you know, when you've got little humans that are adults and stuff, that's a pretty good feeling too, and they become really good friends, and you have that whole different relationship. So
Someone growing up to me just said to me, your kids are only ever alone. And I think that's good. You know, like you actually want them to be able to leave home and find their own way.
yeah, it means
You
you've
don't
done your
want-
job.
You've done a good job.
Yeah.
You don't want them to be hanging around necessarily.
We had a stat the other day, Suze, that by your kids' age of 18, 90% of your FaceTime with them is done.
Oh, yeah, I saw that the other day on something.
Yeah.
Isn't that scary?
So that's scary. And when someone said the other day, oh, how often do you see your dad? I said, I go down 3 times a year, 4 times a year maybe, blah, blah, blah. So how long do you go down for? I said, sometimes a day, sometimes 2. He said he's 85. If he lives to 90, you've got like 12 days left with your dad.
Oh, my God. That's
It's like,
too
no,
sad.
no.
You can't do that.
I've got all these years. And they go, yeah, but you only see him once every 3 months or so because of life or whatever. It's scary how quickly it all goes.
Yeah. And you know what else as well? Like we say that our parents don't say stuff to us, but I keep thinking I need to say to my parents, thanks for being great parents.
Mm.
Because especially my mum, like she was a full-time mum. Seems like a really thankless job. And I think she struggled a bit over the years with her self-confidence and stuff because, you know, she has, you know, she hasn't had a job or like a
Yeah.
paid job.
Yeah.
I know that if I said that to her, and I've said it on the radio once, and I got Dad to play it to her, but to actually say it to her, she would just, I don't know what she'd do, but that's what I need to do.
When your dad played it to your mum, what was her reaction?
Yeah. He said, because he played it in front of some friends as well, because they were on a caravan trip. What did he say? She puffed her chest out. She puffed her chest out like
She'd be
was,
so proud.
you know,
She really would. There'd be that many people in Australia that would see you as sort of our sporting daughter, as we do with our sporting heroes and
Yeah.
legends, to actually be your mum. She'd be very, very proud. And I'm sure she's very proud of the mum that you've become coming through all that as well. She'd understand it
hopefully.
more than most.
Hopefully. If you ever say that to her, she goes, someone came up and said to me that I must be really proud of me. And Mum goes, and I said to them, what about my other 2 children?
Oh, yeah, of course.
you know, they're like that.
Yeah.
It's funny. But yeah, no, she should be proud.
Hey, Suze, growing up in Brizzy and having this success and now being on the Brecky show and so forth, do you find it hard sometimes to have a bad day, to honk someone in the traffic or to not be up and about? Because people have a persona, you know, and that's a positive one that they have with you. And we ask all our guests this, how do you manage a bad day?
Yeah, I'm a shocker. I'm a massive people pleaser anyway. So that added with people who might know who I am, I never crack up. I don't think, ever. I think I need to work on that a bit more, actually. I need to set better boundaries because I think if you are a people pleaser and you don't want to upset people and you think that they know you as a nice person, you let people do more things than you want them to do. Makes sense?
For sure. They take advantage of it, for sure.
Yeah, not on purpose, but
No.
I've got to work on saying no a bit better. But no, I would never be rude to someone. Mainly because, and not mainly, probably because of my upbringing as well, but also the added layer on top. I do actually feel that a bit, to
Yeah.
be fair.
Now, a lot of people say the same thing. And
Oh, do they? Because
yeah,
I only heard one of your podcasts with Ben Fordham, and he was like, "No, I don't care less." I'm thinking, "Oh
well,
my God, good
he's
for him."
he's a different cat, that's for
Is
sure.
he?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
he's fantastic. And, of course, he's gone on to bigger and better things. He's now the king of Sydney radio and, in terms of the AM dial and, fighting it out with Kyle and Jack Yo every morning for that spot. But, yeah, he's super confident, of course, and he is a genuinely good person anyway, so I doubt he's ever in that position much. But, yeah, people do take advantage, that's for sure, and you need to put them in their place every now and again. Now, talk
Good
about
advice.
Cliff before we go into another couple of things. Your rock, your stability. Cliff, you knew each other from a very young age. Did you know that he was the one?
Yeah, well, I met him at my brother's 21st in 1992. So I just turned 19 years old, and I definitely had a connection then straight away.
Yeah.
He had another girlfriend for 2 more years after that.
Oh.
So
So you
obviously-
didn't white out that relationship?
No. So he had another girlfriend for a couple of years, and then we kind of caught up again. He went to uni with my brother, so that's how I know him. So in 2 years' time after that, 1994, they were graduating from uni. My brother got married. There was a lot of parties and things, so I started going to things where he was at. And what really drew me to him is his confidence. He is also very confident and can talk to anyone. And I was probably at the beginnings of, it sounds like myself, but people kind of knew who I was a bit, so people wouldn't always, I don't know,
They were a little bit standoffish to you because you were
some kind of a little bit.
on the
And
telly
Cliff,
and so forth?
maybe, and Cliff is, and even now when we might meet someone famous, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to bother them and won't talk to them. He'll just go straight up to them and just start, and people are fine, aren't they? Talking to him.
They're humans. They're human
So
beings.
yeah. So so I suppose his confidence, and he's quite different to me. Back then he was very social and really the life of the party. I kind of wanted to be around that. He was like a real leader,
Yeah, good energy.
really good energy.
So what happened to the poor girl before you?
She's a really nice girl. Everyone keeps saying they're still kind of I've run into her once. We look very similar, actually.
Oh,
but,
hello. He's got a type. He's got a type, the big fella.
Yeah. I think she got happily married and it's fine.
That's good. So you and Cliff eventually, after meeting a couple of years later, you start hooking up and so forth. He's there for a lot of your swimming after that. And I remember you were waiting for him when we were doing the London Olympics together, and he was coming sort of at the end of the swimming maybe. From memory, and you and I having a Pizza Express pizza one night before I had to do my... Because remember, I was doing the Brekkie show from midnight till 3 a.m.
How are you doing that? That's crazy.
Mate, I was on such a high because we were having such fun. And I think I was at the Olympics going, wow, this is just incredible. And you and I having dinner one night, and I think he might have been coming the next day to sort of enjoy the Olympics because you then you had more time. You could relax after the swimming was done. And by that stage, you were married but no kids. Is that right? Then in 2010? Or did you have some kids? 2012?
No, I would have had kids.
Yeah.
No, I would have had...
So you left the kids at home for the Olympics?
Yeah, 2004, 2005.
Happy days. So grandma and granddad stepped up.
Yeah. 7 and 8-year-old, maybe, or 8 and 9-year-old.
Of course.
Yeah, that was good. Oh, I really remember that. The first night he arrived, because I went to dinner with Rebecca Wilson and her husband at the time. It's sad.
It is sad, yeah.
We had a really nice dinner. I went home and to the hotel, and Cliff was there, and I got a message on Facebook or something from... I don't know if I should say this, because I'd commentated all week. It's hard to commentate, right, and not offend people.
I remember you being sad. I wasn't going to ask you about it, but I remember you'd said something and it had been interpreted the wrong way, and you were really upset. That's
right. Well, I said I was honest, and now I think you can be too honest sometimes when you...
Can you remember what you said?
Yeah, totally. I was being interviewed by Eddie McGuire, and because, I used to do like an interview between the heats and finals sort of a thing.
Yeah.
And the team wasn't going as well as expected.
No.
Eddie kept pushing and pushing and pushing. I'm going to blame Eddie, but it's my inexperience as well. But he was asking me, why isn't the team going as well? And I think finally I just said, I don't know if I can say it again. It's not going to blow up again, is it? Because it was a big deal at the time.
No, I'm sure it won't. We're a few years on now.
Who cares? I think I said, I just don't think this team has the same work ethic as maybe 10 years ago, which is kind of what I'd heard from people around the thing. Yeah, not everyone. That was a very general comment.
Of course. And Eddie can be very persuasive.
So I just wish that's one thing I wish I'd never done, because remember the next day it was front page
Yeah.
and the swimming was still going. The swimming was still on. It was so bad for the team. I really regret that, because I'd been in that situation before as a swimmer. When you're swimming your heart out, doing your best, and an ex-swimmer comes in and says something ridiculous, like they want the attention or whatever, but it's not, that isn't what happens. And
No.
it's during the meet and everyone hears about it. And then it's like another sort of a knife in the back of you because as a swimmer, you're giving 100, you're honestly doing your best. You're not going out there to not try.
Of course. I remember you being,
I was so upset.
because we were a team.
On
Rebecca,
Yeah.
you, me, Ray Hadley, we're a team. And I remember someone saying that you're upset and walking into the base of the Olympics,
God.
and you were obviously, you were teared up and so forth, and we were trying to fix it. And I know
because I had
that's,
to commentate still for a couple more days.
yeah, and it was a difficult time. So
The first night I went back to the night when Cliff arrived, I got a message from one of the coaches of the team giving it to me, saying disappointing, uninformed commentary from someone who should know better, which is exactly true in a lot of ways and exactly wrong in a lot of ways.
yes,
But I definitely regret saying that.
and Cliff was there at least, so, or it wasn't the romantic first night he was
Yeah,
expecting,
no,
I suppose.
it wasn't.
He got completely brushed.
Actually, you know what? I think we had actually just before I read it.
Oh, okay. Got one away. That's
I
good.
think I got one
Happy days.
from memory.
Whilst you put your luggage down, darling, you're doing
We're
the.
married, right? It's fine.
Of course it is. No problem. So you've moved on, you've done your swimming and so forth. You're now doing the commentary. You're feeling a little bit more yourself in terms of talking to other people. You're practicing that more, so it becomes a bit easier. But you become a breakfast radio host on Nova up in Brisbane, which I couldn't believe it at the time. I was like, is this a stunt of some description?
Really? And you knew me as a commentator then?
I know, but I just knew the way that we had known each other, that, you know, that breakfast thing, you've just got to be up and about, and you've got to be telling porcupines all the time, and you've just got it's just a different type of show being on Brekkie Radio and being a bit zany and so forth. But you've been doing it 10 years, so it's something that you obviously are good at, and secondly, you love it because you wouldn't do it otherwise, right?
Yeah, I love it. And I had really good people around me. So Ash and Lutzy were great. I was very lucky to come in at the top in radio, virtually.
Yeah. First
I was
job, breakfast radio.
I was in Brisbane, so I wasn't in Sydney, the top, I suppose, but as you were. Yeah, I definitely didn't take it for granted, and I made a lot of mistakes. Don't ask me what my mistakes were because I don't want to repeat them, but
No,
I
that's
definitely
fine.
said some wrong stuff
We've all done that.
that probably should have been dumped. It's hard, isn't it, when it's live radio and you kind of got to be yourself, but not yourself exactly 100%, because if you're exactly 100%, you might say things that you probably wouldn't say to everyone. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It's been challenging and I get a good high from it as well. Like I love the feeling that you get from it.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm getting tired though, I've got to say. I'm getting tired getting up early.
Yeah, it's a
It gets
balancing act.
tiring, hey?
Brekkie's a balancing act of your own. Like, I reckon I put on 40 kilos 4 times in the 10 years that I was on Brekkie Radio, and I was always good at losing it as well. But, getting up near 150 kilo, and then coming back down
were you?
again, and having to have goals to focus on. Like, so that we took the show to New York in 2014. I ran the New York Marathon. So I had a year of losing 40 kilos, and the team went with me on it. We had all the experts come in. And so we had little things like that to keep me going. But yeah, I was not a healthy person, but I loved it, and I loved my team. And I loved the thought of being in people's lives every day and people coming up on the street, and just saying, mate, that was great, or I love listening to you guys. You really helped me. And I never got that high again until I started Gotcha for Life, actually, that professional feeling of like I'm doing something that is helping other people.
Yeah, that's it exactly, isn't it? When people say they related to something that you said,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, wow, that's awesome. That you feel like that as well. Or they go, oh, I never would have said that, but you said exactly what I was feeling. Yeah, that's a good feeling, isn't it?
I remember the boss of Triple M saying to me, they're Me Too moments. Like, people are driving along or listening, they're in the bus and they go, oh yeah, me too. I know exactly what Susie means there. That's when you feel like you're hitting the right sort of spots with your audience, for sure.
Yeah, you do have to look after yourself though. I'm in that point at the moment, I think. I've got to make sure I get more sleep. I've got to get more sleep. Who
Gotta
says
go
you
to
need
bed
less
earlier.
sleep as you get older?
What time do you wake up?
I can, and I try to, and I have been, 'cause especially when I was training for that World Masters event. I can go swimming training before the show, so I can get up
Oh,
at 3:45, go swimming training from 4:15 to 5:15, and then go to the show. And then by 10 o'clock, I've done my exercise and my
stop it, mate.
paid work.
That's ridiculous. We had to be in there for 4:30, so there was no, like, I was sleeping. In the end, I was getting
Oh.
1 extra minute on my alarm because I worked out that if I did everything correctly, had my clothes laid out, that I could get up a minute later, which would be
Wow.
heaven.
Did you get 4:30 to get on air at 5:30 or
I'll
6?
get on air at 6.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so
We're a bit different to that.
we're a bit more preparation than your show, obviously.
Probably because you're Sydney. Probably have to prepare for it. But and I go to bed about 9:30. But I don't sleep that well. I think I'm going through menopause as well. It's hard being a lady.
I know it is, of course. You
All
poor
I'm doing is
things.
complaining. Actually, I shouldn't complain. Breakfast radio is virtually 3 hours a day, and it's about 35 minutes of actually on air time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not too
I
bad.
can't really complain compared
No.
to most people. We shouldn't complain.
No
I'm
complaint.
grateful. #grateful.
Yes, exactly right. Now,
I'm very lucky.
you did mention the World Aquatic Masters in Japan. You broke the world record for the 50-meter butterfly. You took home another gold in the 50 to 54 age group. Do you only enter events now that you can definitely dominate, or was this a stunt for the radio, or was it something that was a bit of a double whammy, good for the radio, but also you needed it just to keep your own physical fitness going?
It was a stunt for the radio, definitely, to start with. I didn't know about it. The boys worked it out, and they sold it to me that we're going over to the Masters for my 50th birthday, and we're going to do a relay because we're going to do mixed relays now.
Okay.
So mixed 4x50 freestyle relay. It's going to be the two boys. They'll do freestyle. They'll do 50 free and me. Plus, we'll do a competition, and a listener can win and come along as well.
Great idea.
Which is a great idea, hey?
Yeah.
And then they go to me, and you've also got to qualify. You've got to actually be in an individual event to go ahead to do it,
Right.
to be on it. I'm like, oh, okay. And then the executives at Nova started going crazy, going, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I'm like, hang on. It's the Masters, and I know from personal experience, a lot of Masters swimmers are very good. You know, they train a lot. So in my mind, I didn't think I was going to win or break a world record. I thought I'll be lucky to make the final because the executives were going, oh yeah, we'll do this as your big comeback.
Oh,
I'm like, nah, we'll get an interview with Carl Stefanovic, and you'll get you on all this stuff. I'm
today's
like,
show
no.
and blah, blah,
I'm
blah.
like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm happy to do the relay. Anyway, so it worked out. We did that. I had to qualify for the event at a local carnival at Chandler, and I broke the world record at that event. So it's kind of anyway, it was a really fun experience. It was really great for the team. As you said, you know, you're doing different things to go over
Yeah, a bit of
and
fun.
just reconnect again.
Yeah.
Because reconnect, just focus on the radio show
Yeah.
for a few days. The relay was fun. The listener we got
How'd the
was
relay go?
awesome. We got 4th by 1/100th of a second.
Who let you down?
If only those two I work with, Ash and Lusty, had have spent 1 minute in the pool before we went, I reckon we would have got there.
They literally no preparation at all.
They did a lot of weights. They're really into doing weights.
Is that
at the
good?
moment. Well, it's better than nothing, but they didn't.
If they'd done a lap, it might have helped.
Yeah, no, it was fun.
And what
our
an
listener-
experience for the listener.
Yeah, and she was great. Like, we got a good one. You know, you don't always get good ones.
No. Yeah.
She was excellent. She fitted in so perfectly. It was really fun.
Suze, we could talk forever, but we're gone over. But I want to just
Okay.
get the final fast five
yeah.
questions, which we ask all of our guests. First up, have you got a favourite quote?
My favourite quote at the moment, I especially have used it. I've got to get it up though. I especially use it when I've been on radio, because I found radio a lot harder than my swimming career, because sport for me became sport was a lot more naturally easy. Is that
Yeah.
the right sentence?
Yeah.
Speaking it's not something I did a lot of. Okay.
Yes.
Growing up.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people you go, oh, she was in the debating team. She's a perfect fit. So I'm just trying to find the thing, perfect
That's
fit
okay.
for it.
No,
So
take your time.
it's a poem that actually I first saw. Cliff actually pointed it out to me. It was in Wayne Bennett's first book. It's called The Man in the Arena.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read it?
No.
So do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
I love it. It's called, well, Man in the Arena, but, you know, the man means men and women.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who was actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, and comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat.
Theodore Roosevelt. Yeah. Teddy.
You've heard it, hey?
Teddy.
How
That's
good is that?
So good.
Especially when I started in the radio, and you can imagine people don't like change.
Yeah.
You come into a radio show, I was a lot worse than I am now,
Yep.
and you get a lot of criticism.
Yep.
A lot of criticism. I wanted to give up so many times. Honestly, I thought, why am I even doing this? What's the point? I just wanted to be like a trophy that they kept in a trophy cabinet. How I already, like as the swimmer.
Yeah.
Because I felt like, okay, I was good at swimming. Am I ever going to be good at radio? And all I'm doing is coming out here and people are just saying how bad I am at it. And I am bad at it. I know I'm bad at it. I'm just trying to get better. And every time I thought, I should not be doing this, I would read that poem and think, hang on, at least I'm out here trying. I've got the opportunity. Not many people get the opportunity. I'm very lucky in that respect. And I don't always hit the mark, and I do fail, but at least I'm actually trying. I'm not those, losers just in the grandstands criticising.
Bloody oath. No. And 10 years on breakfast radio, mate. You must be doing something right.
Yeah, maybe.
Your favourite holiday destination?
Anywhere to do with water. I just had a surfing holiday in Indonesia. I'd love to go to the Whitsundays, and we hire those. Our favourite probably family holiday is hiring those catamarans up in the Whitsundays and going around. You sleep on the boat and stuff. It's excellent.
Fantastic. What about your favourite book? Are you a reader?
Oh, I do read a lot, and I've struggled with this question a lot because it just depends on what I'm kind of reading at the moment. Actually, I brought in the book I'm reading at the moment because it's excellent.
Okay.
And I should show it to you.
Give it a plug, yeah.
It's called Soul for Happy, Engineer Your Path to Joy.
Can you show us the... Nice. And what have you got out of that?
Well, basically, this guy, he is a Google executive, and he was really, really successful, going really well, but he wasn't happy. And then he's like, okay, well, I'm an engineer, and what I do to solve problems is I do mathematical equations. So I'm going to do a mathematical equation to come up what is happiness.
Oh.
So he did it, and basically it's happiness is your perception of the events in your life minus your expectations of what your life should be like. So if you're expecting something to be really good and it falls short, you're unhappy. If you have lower expectations and it's better than that, you're happier.
Yeah, so it's that sweet spot in the middle.
Yeah, so basically he came up with this thing. He's like, okay, I've found the secret to happiness. Then his son dies in a preventable surgical procedure. I think he was getting his tonsils out or his appendix out, and a sort of a human error means that his son dies at like the age of 20. And he's like, okay, well, I wonder if this equation, solve for happy, still works. And he goes, it does. And he talks about all that and how you engineer your path to joy, even if the worst thing in the world that happens to you, which is one of your children dying, isn't it? That's probably the worst thing that could happen to you. You can still be happy. So I'm halfway through it at the moment, but it's really good.
That would test me, that scenario. Wow.
Yeah, same.
What about favourite movie? Are you a movie buff? Do you like a particular flick?
But I was talking about to my daughter yesterday. She goes, you know what I reckon it is? I say, what? She goes, every time that she gets down or flat, we watch a movie together and we watch Dirty Dancing. We always watch Dirty Dancing together. And I'm thinking, yeah. Isn't it? I mean, I'm not sure if it's politically correct these days, that movie. I don't get into that stuff, but I love it.
I think if we see it for the sake of what it is, it's all good fun and whatever. But you can drill down on everything now and make it a drama.
Yeah, but we watch that whenever she's like we sit together and watch that movie together.
It's so nice. It's your safe place, and you sit there together and you watch it. You know what's going to happen, and you're soothing for each other. That's so good. And last question, Suze, Very, very lucky to have a supporter like Shaw and Partners Financial Services that have been a great supporter of mine and for my foundation, Gotcha for Life. And they've got $10,000 that they want to give away to any charity that you particularly have a soft spot for. Who would you like to give the 10K to, and what do you think they'll do with that 10K?
Wow. Yeah. Firstly, thanks to Shaw and Partners. Very generous of them. And I'd like to give it to the Fred Hollows Foundation.
Brilliant.
So it's a charity for preventable blindness. I've been an ambassador for them since the year 2000. So my dad was an eye doctor, which is how the connection with me and that charity. And then Cliff now is an eye doctor as well. He wasn't at the time, but my husband is an eye doctor now as well. So that's the connection. And it's preventable blindness, mainly in overseas countries. They can do a cataract operation for, I think the lens is $25 for a very affordable amount. And they train doctors overseas to do those operations as well. So it's a really, really good charity.
Yeah, and he's an absolute legend. He was an absolute legend, of course, and everyone knows. And those ads brought a tear to your eyes when you realise for $25 you can give sight to someone. So that's fantastic. So that 10 grand will go a long way. Before we let you go, the producer of this podcast, Keisha, she's just sitting here off camera, and she said back in the day she thinks she had a Barbie doll that could actually swim, and she thought it was the Susie O'Neill Barbie doll. Was it officially a Susie O'Neill Barbie doll, or was it just that it looked like you that everyone called it that?
It was a Olympic Barbie doll, and she could swim, and I did all the ads for them. But
There you go.
everyone thinks it's the Susie Barbie. It wasn't
Yeah.
specifically, I didn't endorse it as a Susie Barbie, but I did the endorsements as Olympic Barbie. The ads are funny. I've got them at the moment. I should send it to Keisha.
Yeah, it'd be good. She was
yeah.
7 in 2000, so it was obviously a big deal for her. And when we said that you and I were mates and we're going to have this chat, she was like, that went straight to her memory bank. So it was a really lovely memory for her.
That's funny. So many people say that to me. They had Susie Barbie.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
funny.
especially now at the
Yeah.
moment, like it's going off, isn't it, Barbie?
Yeah.
Such a good movie. But hey, Suze, it's so fun. It seems to have gone really quickly, but it's so lovely to catch up with you again. And I love the fact that you're looking at yourself and you're having a crack and you're opening up all these type of things to explore what the next 30 odd's going to be for you. And congratulations on your career and careers, I should say.
Thank
And
you.
it was a real pleasure talking to you. And we'll make sure that Fred Hollows gets that 10 grand, all thanks to Shaw and Partners.
Thanks, Gus. It's been fun. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too, mate.
I'm sure you loved the chat that I had with Susie O'Neill. What an absolute weapon. I absolutely love her. And of course, that $10,000 going to the Fred Hollows Foundation. So that's it for episode 1. We'll be back next week with episode 2. Till then, see you later.